Addicted to you. I waited for my mother to tell me that it was a joke, or for my father to explain that his new secretary was bringing him some new documents, that she was not sitting there, smug and telling us that she was pregnant. I was like my mother in many regards. One of them was my temper, but she was eerily calm. When the girl, just a few years older than me, said that she was pregnant with my father's child, you just had to be a stereotype, right, Dad? I, on the other hand, was fuming. My parents were getting a divorce and had been keeping it from me for months now. Son, stop being selfish. Not everything is about you, my mom said. He betrayed you. Why are you defending him? I asked. Our marriage fell apart ages ago. I am leaving him. She said. I could see that she was hurt, but there was something steely in her eyes. And from that day on, it was like war had been declared between my parents. All they did was fight over the estate, over Sasha, and no one cared how I took it. They did not notice when I moved and went to stay with a friend. I spent my nights wallowing in self-pity. No one cared how I felt about the whole situation. That was until I met Thomas. I was at my usual bar, ordering drinks, yet nothing could numb the pain when he came and asked me if I wanted to talk about it. He listened as I whined about my parents. Then, he said that he was not a therapist, but he had something that could help me. He handed me a little white pill. What I experienced when I took it was a feeling that I found myself chasing the next morning. I had nothing on my mind, just pure bliss. He seemed to be the brightest thing in the room, laughing and dancing with me. Then after that, we went to his place and continued the party. That became the first night out of many that we spent together. We were something between lovers and party buddies. I could not tell what I was addicted to between him and the pills we were always popping. I partied my life away, even though I had work in the morning most of the time. After many written warnings, I was brought in for a drug test at work. My boss said that someone caught me snorting coke at work. I denied it to my last breath, but the results came back positive. Levi, you tested positive for cocaine. I am in my right mind to fire you. Your work is suffering, and you have become a liability. Mr. Ridley, my boss said. Sir, I am going through personal problems. My parents are divorcing. I said, you are a grown man. You should learn to deal with your emotions in a better way. I want you out of here in the next half an hour. Gosh, you do not understand. No one does. I am hurting and no one cares. Fine, I will leave your stupid company. I can get a better job. It was getting more common for me to snap or be in a bad mood when I was not high. I went and packed my stuff, ranting to anyone who would listen about how unfair it was that I was being fired. I wish I had seen the person that I was becoming before it was too late. At this point, I was now living with Thomas full-time. I had not spoken to my parents in ages. When I got home, I found Thomas sitting with a strange-looking man in the living room. He looked a bit scary with leather clothes, lots of tattoos, and a menacing expression. Hey babe, this is my friend Pablo, he said, but he looked a bit uncomfortable, and I just interrupted something between them. I mumbled a hi and went to my room. As soon as I left, I heard them beginning to whisper. Later on, when I told him that I had lost my job, he was very pissed off. I told you not to take anything at work. Now how are we going to keep on partying? I barely make anything at my workplace, he said. I usually gave him the money for our stuff, then he would buy it from his suppliers. I saw the look on his face. It was the look he had when he was about to give bad news. I did not want to be kicked out of his heart or his life. I reassured him that I still had cash, and my dad would give me if I ran out. He relaxed, and we were back on good terms. It was not all partying with him. We would have these moments when it was just us and any random thoughts that we had, and he understood me more than anyone else had ever done. There was only one person who I could say I used to love in that way, but it did not matter anymore. I had lied. I had no money saved up, so I went to my dad to ask him for money. I was still upset with him, but he jumped to give me money when I asked. My mother, on the other hand, I could not get hold of. According to Dad, she was fighting tooth and nail for a large chunk of his estate. Just as I was leaving, I bumped into someone. I instantly frowned when I saw who it was. Sasha. You? I narrowed my eyes. She had an icy expression on her face when she saw me. I am your soon-to-be stepmom. Show me some respect, she said. She had such an annoying attitude. I turned to leave, but then she called after me. You dropped this? She handed a small packet to me. My heart stopped. It was my stash, and from the look on her face, she knew what it was. We all have our secrets. I snatched it from her and walked away. And of course, she snitched to my dad, who probably told my mom because I got a message from her later that day. Mom, you better quit whatever you are taking. I need you to help me by testifying against your dad in the divorce case. Gee, thanks for caring about my well-being. I do not know what you heard, but I am not a drug addict. Mom, Do not mess this up for me. Well, it was nice to know that she still cared. That night, I went and indulged in even more debaucherous behavior than ever before. If I was going to make the family look bad, then I had to go all out. Thomas did not ask what was going on. He made sure that I had the night of my life. That night was a rude awakening to what I was doing to myself. I had too many substances in my bloodstream, and the next thing I knew, I was on the floor. I woke up the next day at the hospital. I had overdosed and nearly died. No one knew where Thomas was. The fact that he could just leave me alone told me something. Maybe Thomas was not the person I needed in my life. We were bad for each other, only headed for ruin and destruction. He was not even answering my phone calls, or there in the hospital with me. I did remember someone familiar carrying me when I was in and out of consciousness, and that someone was sitting next to my bed when I woke up. It was my childhood friend, Adrian, and he did not look too happy. He told me that he had been at the same event, working on a case. When he was about to call for backup and make an arrest, he saw me overdosing. I asked him if he saw Thomas, but he said that he saw no one by that description. I decided that I was done with Thomas, and I wanted to fix my life. So then, I moved back home, and my mom moved in to take care of me. My parents were disappointed and gave me attention for all of 2 minutes before arguing again. By the end of the week, my mom had left, and my father was giving his attention to Sasha and her pregnancy. I was left with my own thoughts, which was the worst feeling in the world. That was when Thomas reached out to me for the first time since my overdose. Thomas: "Hey, I am glad you are okay. Would you like to come to a party tonight?" Me: "Glad to see that you still care. Stay away from me." Thomas: "I am sorry, I panicked. But I love you, Levi. This party is so boring without you." He got me when he said he loved me. He knew just how much he drove me crazy, and how I could not resist him. He was my kryptonite, but he was bad for me. I caved in and went, but I promised myself that there would be no substances. When I saw him, he looked genuinely happy to see me, and he told me how miserable he had been without me. I refused to take anything, but when he offered me an edible, I decided to take one, which became 2. And you know how it ends. But then, I saw that Pablo was there, and he seemed to be the one selling the stuff. I also noticed that it was the same stuff I saw Thomas exchanging for money with another guy. But he told me that he never sold, just bought. Come to think of it, I never asked what his job was. I decided to confront him and ask him if he was working with Pablo. "No, I am just making some extra cash for tonight." He shrugged. "He just seems like a dangerous guy. I do not want you to get caught up in all that," I said. Says the addict. He scoffed. Not once had he ever turned on me. Just then, the door broke down and police came through the door. I knew I should have listened to my instincts and stayed home. He gave me a look, then started to head in the direction of the bathroom. I tried to follow him, but there was too much commotion. And then my childhood friend, wearing a police uniform, put me in cuffs and arrested me. But when no one was noticing, he took all the drugs that were on me and gave me a look not to say anything. I was so scared. I did not want to spend the night in jail. "You are putting me in a tight position here, but I owe you a lot," he said before I was put in the van. I got lucky as a user, but those that had stuff with them were not so lucky. My father posted bail for me, and when I got out, I saw that my mother was there as well, and she was crying. I owed Adrian a lot. Thanks to him I did not get into too much trouble, but we did have a serious talk the next day. I will not always be there to help out. You need to be careful about the people you hang out with. What are you doing? This is not the Levi I knew. He looked so disappointed. The Levi you knew died, I said. Is this about your parents? He asked. That and so much more. Thomas was an escape, but he understood me. He loved me, I said, so much that he tried to snitch on you, saying you were selling drugs, so he could get bail. He asked. My heart broke, as everything I thought I loved turned into ash. And even then, I felt a tug back to him. I assured my family that I was fine, and that I did not have cravings, but Adrian could see through me. He knew me better than anyone else. Even my parents, who were recently divorced, could not see that I was not okay. I wanted Thomas back, despite all he had done. I loved him. He had been there during the time that I had no one. Adrian visited the house several times to check up on me, and it was during that time that he told off my parents. They were arguing over petty things, and I was getting anxious. With all due respect, you are part of the reason he is like this. He suddenly interrupted them. What are you talking about? My mom was practically red in the face. Sasha was sitting in the corner, shushing the baby she had given birth 2 days ago. You are so focused on hating each other that you do not care how much it affects Levi. If you paid attention, then you would know that your son needs rehab and counseling. I had never seen him mad like that. I felt a bit warm. So far, everyone had just been blaming me. Somehow, he got through to them, and they apologized for hating each other so much that they did not see how I was hurting. Going to rehab was a huge step for me. I was scared. The cravings alone made me wish for death, but there was no such reprieve. I was there for several months, and during those months, Adrian visited me. We reconnected and I started to look forward to his visits. I was much happier on the days that I saw him. This made it easier to stop thinking of Thomas. I loved him and wanted to stop. While I was talking to my counselor, she made an observation. "I do not think that you are addicted to drugs," she said. "What do you mean?" I asked. "Just from observation, from the way you talk. You do not say you miss the feeling you got from drugs. You say you miss the feeling he gave you," she said. "So, I am addicted to him?" I asked, confirming what I already knew. Either way, Adrian never failed to visit me, and at that time, we talked about the past. Years ago, Adrian and I had feelings for each other, but we were in the closet. It got to a point where we had to stop dating. His family was traditional, and I was not ready to tell mine. Either way, we remained friends until we lost contact after high school. It was like he had never left. He knew all the right things to say to get my mind settled. After 6 months of being clean, I was out of rehab. I started to get my life back, starting with looking for a new job. Time had healed and I did not think of Thomas anymore, but something was budding between me and Adrian. On the night I got out, we had a sleepover, just like when we were kids. It was during that sleepover that we nearly kissed, but I could not go through with it. I have never stopped feeling the way I did, but I need to focus on healing. I am not ready for another relationship. I was honest with him. "It is fine, I will be a friend. I love you a lot. I hope you know that," he said, bringing me in for a hug. I felt so safe and hopeful. 2 years later, I had a stable job, my own apartment, and had not touched drugs again. I was happier, feeling less resentful towards my parents, and in a healthy relationship with Adrian. A year into my recovery, we could not deny the feelings between us. I was finally able to trust again, and tentatively, I made a move. He did not have to be patient, but he was there for me. Even though he had been in relationships that year, I suppressed my jealousy and was happy for him. One night, when we were both single, I decided to make a move. I had known this guy all my life and felt like we had been separated for far too long. He accepted me as I was, and we started to work on ourselves. I never saw Thomas again, but he sent me a letter a few months after rehab. He apologized for the mess he dragged me into and said he was moving away. My mother had remarried a widower with 2 daughters, and her new family was very nice. I visited my father's house most of the time, but it was always because of Pierre, my little brother. I learned to forgive my father. We are all humans and are bound to make mistakes. I never thought that my life would turn out like this. I had completely thrown in the towel. But Adrian saved me. But he says that I saved myself by admitting that I had a problem and agreeing to fix it. We have a healthy relationship, not perfect but very honest. I look forward to the many years that we have together. We got married about a month ago, in a small ceremony with our family present. His family took a while to accept him, but now they understand that our love is genuine. We want to have kids in the future, but right now, we are trying to enjoy our honeymoon. I learned from Pierre that kids are not just cuteness overload. There are responsibilities attached. Nonetheless, I feel so much more optimistic about the future. Addiction does not have power over anyone, not if you choose to remove it. Summary. After finding out that his parents are divorcing, Levi is crushed. The worst part is that they do not care how he feels about it. All they are focused on who gets what in the settlement. He makes a new friend, Thomas, who listens to all his problems and offers him a solution. Levi falls hard for Thomas and the escape he brings. He loses his grip on reality and soon, everything keeps falling apart. Even when he wants to leave, Thomas has a hold on him and reels him back every time. On a night when his lover abandons him, an act of kindness by a childhood friend allows him to consider whether his addiction is aiding or harming him. With the help of his childhood friend, Adrian, he was able to get over his addiction in rehab and transformed his life with a stable job. He later ended up getting into a sweet and honest relationship with Adrian. The end. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to become a part of our Rainbow Force and stay wholesome.